Hello, I'm Ron Miscavige, and this is another episode of Life After Scientology. And I have a very special guest on today, and we're going to do a video that is going to reveal a lot of truths. As a matter of fact, you might even call today's episode you could call it Truth Revealed. And you'll see what I'm talking about once we get into it. Before I get into it, just let me do a little business, get this out of the way to begin with. And that is this: if you are not a subscriber, please do that today and press the little bell there so when we have a new episode, you'll get notified. Also, if you'd like to contribute to the ongoingness of this program, you can become a Patreon or do a one-time donation with PayPal. And how to do this is in the description on this video. Good. Business out of the way. Now, I got a special guest on today who's probably one of the more articulate people I've ever met in my life. And I know he's done a lot of different things, but if you want to call him an investigative journalist, I think that would be pretty close to the group. Jeffrey, do you agree with me or no?
I do, yeah. Investigative journalist, yeah.
Anyway, before I get into it, here's Jeffrey Augustine. Hey, and one man audience applauding. All right, so now we're going to get right into it. And we went over this before the show, and I have a question to ask you. And this may seem mundane, or what the hell is that question? I think we all know the answer to it, but let me ask it. What is the Church of Scientology?
Ron, that's a great question. Before I answer, first, let me say I'm enjoying the hell out of your podcasts. Great to be back on your show.
Good.
And one of the, to your question, what is the Church of Scientology? When you do investigative journalism or research or investigation, you always start with what seems like stupid questions, right?
Yeah.
But as we learned in going to school, one of the best things you learn when you're very young is there are no stupid questions. So don't ever be afraid to ask what you think are stupid questions. They often lead to the very powerful answers, you know?
Yeah.
So just through life experience and investigation, I learned to ask very simple questions. So what is the Church of Scientology? I'm going to start with an analogy, okay? If I were to say, what is Starbucks? You'd say, well, it's Starbucks coffee, right?
Yeah.
You from our side, you go to a Starbucks and you order a drink, right? And that's it. That's the consumer experience of Starbucks. What Starbucks really is a corporation, and it owns patents, copyrights, it has outlets, employees, and it's global, right?
Right.
So Starbucks also has a supply chain. It buys teas and coffees that are grown in different parts of the world. It buys milk, it buys chocolate, it has paper cups manufactured. It manufactures plastic cups, beautiful aluminum cups like this deluxe one.
Wow.
That's now this has a trademark on it, and it's an insulated cup. If you go to if you type in Google patents Starbucks, you'll see that they have patents for cooking management, machines for brewing coffee, beverage preparation, pressure regulated beverage cartridges, etc. Right?
Right.
So the reason I'm saying this is I'm saying the Church of Scientology, there's no one single Church of Scientology. That's a term of convenience used to refer to this gigantic series of corporations. Okay?
Okay, so let me interrupt for a second, because when we think of Starbucks, of course, I think of good coffee. I happen to like Starbucks. I would think there is a place that's called the Starbucks Company. And there probably is, isn't there?
There's a headquarters, yes.
Right. Is there any such thing with the Church of Scientology?
Yeah, and that's what we're going to get to.
Good.
Okay, first of all, the point I want to make is Starbucks owns a lot of patents and copyrights, trademarks, okay?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't go open Starbucks coffee. You know, Jeff and Ron Starbucks coffee, or we've sued for infringement, right? And so these are the copyrights and trademarks.
Right.
Now, the way this Church of Scientology begins is all of its copyrights and trademarks are owned by the Religious Technology Center. And the Church of Spiritual Technology owns some, but it's effectively the Religious Technology Center is a legally separate religious corporation that owns all the copyrights and trademarks, okay?
Right.
So Scientology basically exists in the form of its copyrights, trademarks for the intellectual materials created by L. Ron Hubbard, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's the patent to the e-meter. It owns the service mark. Scientology is an actual service mark that's registered. So the Religious Technology Center, of whom David Miscavige is chairman of the board, RTC, is a religious corporation that owns all the intellectual property of Scientology. Okay, right?
Right.
So, and that's where it differs from Starbucks. Starbucks owns all of its own intellectual property and doesn't need this other corporation to hold. It doesn't need a holding company to hold all of its intellectual property. That's
see.
the big difference. So the Church of Scientology refers to the whole thing, right? So the headquarters of Scientology is called the Church of Scientology International, CSI.
Right.
Originally, it was the Church of Scientology in California, but they dissolved that corporation after the Watersham lawsuit. So the Church of Scientology International is an administrative church. It doesn't deliver auditing, and it manages. So the Religious Technology Center licenses the Church of Scientology International, right?
Right.
And they do that and they get money in return. So here's how it works. The Church of Scientology International is the headquarters. It's the administrative church. And it in turn licenses all the other churches of Scientology. So Flagland Base, Church of Scientology Los Angeles, Celebrity Center, the SHIP, Church of Scientology New York. Wherever there's a Church of Scientology, each of those churches are legally separate corporations. So probably the first thing when we say Church of Scientology, we're saying that everything in Scientology is its own separate legal corporation. And they do that so that if they get sued, you can only sue like the Church of Scientology of Los Angeles.
I see.
You can't go after the big thing because everything is legally separate, okay? And everything operates, Celebrity Center operates on a license from the Church of Scientology International, right?
Yeah.
So so they pay the Church of Scientology International a fee in order to do that. By analogy, Starbucks, let's say the Starbucks here by my house on Hollywood and Western.
Yeah.
They operate based on a license from Starbucks. They're not a franchise, but they need, they're legally authorized to operate that store, and they have employees and they have processes and they use everything, right? So
no, wait a minute. Wait, before we go any further.
Yeah.
Are you saying that all of the Starbucks stores are owned directly by Starbucks?
Yeah, they're owned directly by Starbucks.
So they are not franchises, and they are not the same thing as the comparison between, let's say, Celebrity Center and Church of Scientology International.
Yeah, you're correct.
That's an independent entity, the Church of Scientology. Excuse me, the Celebrity Center.
Exactly, and this is really the way to think of the Church of Scientology is it's a franchise system.
I got it.
So the Church of Scientology International.
Let me tell you something interesting, Jeffrey, and I'm not going to interrupt this way. And again, it used to be called the Franchise Office in England. Did you know that?
I did, and that's originally Mr. Hubbard started missions,
right?
Which were franchises, and the mission holders paid 10% of the money back to the to the Commodore.
Okay,
so you're correct. And so what we're dealing with the Church of Scientology is a franchise system.
Okay.
And that's done for legal reasons. But this leads me to ask, okay, now, is T-Java Starbucks? No, it's not. T-Java is not Starbucks. Is Lipton Instant Iced Tea Starbucks? No. So this is kind of a fun thing to think about. Starbucks only sells Starbucks products, right?
Right.
Doesn't sell T-Java or Lipton or anything else. And so the design of Church of Scientology International and the Religious Technology Center is to ensure that only genuine Scientology is designed by L. Ron Hubbard is delivered to all the franchises, right?
Right.
So I couldn't sell T-Java at Starbucks. That's all it is. That's why the Scientology uses this term, the exact technology of Scientology. Well, when you go, that's for standardization. Hubbard created a psychotherapeutic system based on the e-meter, which he got from Volney Matheson, and he wanted to be the McDonald's of psychotherapy.
Yes, that's a good way to put it too, because that's what he wanted to do.
Well, he wanted standardized Scientology, which really, if you go back, and I have this on my blog, the Scientology Money Project, the history of the e-meter. Hubbard said in '53 that he fused Freudian psychotherapy to the electropsychometer, or the e-meter, right?
Right, right.
So there's a standardized psychotherapeutic system that later became a mystical system on OT levels, right?
Right.
He wanted to ensure the standardization of delivery through the franchises. And that'd be like if you get your oil changed at Jiffy Lube, they're going to have the same product, service, price, prices everywhere.
Right, right, right.
So the Church of Scientology is fundamentally a franchise system where you go to get the standardized auditing courses, books, things like that, right?
Yeah.
It's a package of intellectual property. And we went through, when I was on your show last time, one thing I covered is you have to sign these the 4 basic contracts.
Yes.
To get Scientology. And this is what gets people into trouble. So you don't own your parishioner files. If you go type 3 or crazy, you agree to let them lock you up and the introspection run down. And then if you sue them, you agree to not sue them, but to go into binding religious arbitration. So this is
right.
where the mischief lies. And then you don't own your parishioner folders, right?
Yes.
Okay, now, that's sort of like some of the brief legalese. A franchise system, you sign contracts to participate that take away all your legal and civil rights to the corporation. Do we do that when we go to Starbucks? No.
Absolutely not. You don't promise that you're never going to drink anything except Starbucks coffee.
No, you don't. You're free to, if you don't like Starbucks, you're free to go to Pete's or some other outlet near your home, right?
And if you go to another place and drink another coffee, they don't send out private investigators after you either.
No, and
I mean, it seems silly for me to say that, but that's a good example, because that's what happens if you win and after you've received auditing or training and you go out and you start talking against the church, they'll send private investigators out after you, like they did me. These guys were getting paid $10,000 a week to follow me.
Oh man, I'd like to have that gig.
Because, no kidding.
Because you got a boring life, Ron. I mean, most people do, right? It's like 10:56. Ron went to the store. Ron ate lunch.
Right.
Ron read books. Ron listened to music. Ron practiced music. Ron and Becky had dinner. They went to bed. And I would just have to fill out the same form every day, basically.
And could you imagine Starbucks doing that? Okay, he went to McDonald's and he got one of their coffees. Now, when he left McDonald's, he went into Walmart and he didn't buy the Starbucks coffee. I mean, it's goddamn ludicrous. And then you're talking about these things where you're signing your life away?
Yeah. Ron Miscavige observed buying Folgers coffee and not Starbucks.
Right.
Oh, man. Okay, so we're having some fun. But the interesting thing is the Church of Scientology International is a corporation. It's a religious corporation or a church, right?
Right.
Churches are, generally speaking, religious corporations. But the interesting thing, Ron, is the Church of Scientology International is a non-membership corporation. It has no members.
Hang on a second. Hang on.
Yeah.
Do you mean to tell me that I was involved for 42 years as a member of the church, and part of that 26 and a half years on staff, I actually wasn't a member of the Church of Scientology?
Nobody is a member of the Church of Scientology because legally it's a non-membership corporation. There's plenty of corporations that don't have members. The reason they don't want members is because they don't want anyone voting. They don't want shareholders. Now, what the Church of Scientology International has are trustees, a board of directors, and it has trustees, board of directors, and that's about it, right?
Yeah.
It has trustees, board of directors, and one other classification that escapes me at present. So anyway, it has administrators, but no members. So how do you join the Church of Scientology? Well, the answer is you can't join it. So
this is a point and a half, because it was almost in a lighthearted manner, jokingly, I said, this is truth revealed. That's a hell of a point, that you don't actually belong to the Church of Scientology.
Well, you can't join the Church of Scientology. Yeah, I mean, anyone can go on Google, how do I join the Church of Scientology? Or if you called the Church of Scientology near your home, if I called a Celebrity Center and said, how do I join the Church of Scientology? It wouldn't compute, because you can't. Now, how do you become a Scientologist? Okay, you sign these contracts. You signed contracts with the Church of Scientology International.
I got it.
But you haven't signed them as a member of the Church of Scientology. So where the hell does this lead? I'll tell you. How you join the Church of Scientology International is that it has what's called a membership organization. So you put the members over here and the church is over here. Now, the name of the membership organization is called the International Association of Scientologists, the IAS. And the International Association of Scientologists is a membership corporation. It's a membership group. The Church of Scientology International said, we don't have members, so we're going to make the IAS, the International Association of Scientologists, our official membership organization.
I got it.
Now we get into another problem, Ron. The International Association of Scientologists is an unincorporated membership association. That is, it can't have a bank account, can't have a checkbook, it doesn't have an address. An unincorporated membership association would be like this. Let's say a bunch of us liked Corvettes, and we all owned Corvettes, right?
Right.
So men and women who like Corvettes, right? So we meet at Sunday at the local hamburger joint, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we, eat lunch and show off our Corvettes, and we might go on drives, right? Now,
right.
This is an unincorporated association. We don't have any. I mean, like, we don't want anything legal, right? We're people just hang around. We have a common interest in Corvettes.
Yeah.
We like the cars. But when it came down to do anything like we can't do anything legal because we don't exist. We just hang around together. That's what the International Association of Scientologists is. It's an unincorporated membership association.
I got it.
But but listen, Ron, here's the problem. It raises a lot of money. It raised way over $1 billion. So how does it do it legally if it's unincorporated? Because if we were just a bunch of guys and gals who liked Corvettes, right?
Yeah.
How would we raise $1 billion without creating a legal and financial structure? Well,
I'd like to know the answer to that, because then I know they raise it, and like, where are they? Where this is. I mean, you just get into it. I'm not going to.
Okay. So
I'm sorry.
How we would do it is we would create an operating arm. An operating arm. So the operating arm of the IAS is called the International Association of Scientologists Administrations, IASA.
Right.
That's the operating arm. that's a corporation. And So because we can't do anything as IAS members, and this is the way the Church of Scientology keeps all of its membership powerless. As IAS members, we're unincorporated, so we get to vote on exactly nothing. We have say-so on exactly nothing.
Right.
In fact, we're unincorporated. So we cede our power to the IASA, which is staffed by Sea Org members. So Sea Org members are running everything. And one of the things the IASA does is it publishes a magazine for the membership, and Impact Magazine
Right.
is the official membership magazine. And my hand's getting burned on this torch. It's so hot. You see the cover. But this magazine says Impact Magazine, magazine of the IAS, IASmembership.org. On this particular magazine, we are having fifth dynamic campaigns to reshape the destiny of Earth. So anyway, how you join, how you become a Scientologist is, in order to even get auditing in a Church of Scientology, you have to become an IAS member. And so you join and you get an IAS membership card. And that qualifies you to go sign contracts in the Church of Scientology, to get auditing in a Church of Scientology.
I'm going to tell you something. This would be like you want to receive the sacraments like Holy Communion in the Catholic Church.
Correct.
Before you could do that, you have to pay a fee, not give a donation like when they send the basket around, but you'd have to pay a fee to get a card that said you are officially a member of that Catholic parish, and show the card. Then they could put the little wafer in your mouth and you receive communion. There's something wrong with this picture.
Well, Ron, it would be different. It'd be like the Holy Roman Catholic Church. You're baptized into the church, when you're young, and you do become a member of the actual Holy Roman Catholic Church, and you're a member of a particular parish, right? But this would be more like the Holy Roman Catholic Church, if it had a separate membership organization called the International Association of Catholics. It was legally separate from the Holy Roman Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So you can see that it's screwy, but it's true. And I have my blog post. If you go to the Scientology Money Project on the banner, it's called What is the IAS? And here's what the IAS told the Internal Revenue Service of the United States of America. The IAS is not part of the Church of Scientology hierarchy. It has its own separate board of directors elected annually from among its members, and it functions autonomously from the Church of Scientology International and the rest of the church hierarchy. So get that. The IAS is not a part of the Church of Scientology International. It functions autonomously from the Church of Scientology International and the rest of the hierarchy.
Yet it is not a part of it, yet you have to be a member of it before you can get Scientology services, right?
Exactly. Well, this is to create a remove or a legal obfuscation. So you're never a member of the Church of Scientology International. You're standing. When they say you have to be in good standing with the Church of Scientology to receive services?
Yeah.
Well, you're in good standing as an IAS member.
Wow. Anybody who would go to all of this problems must know that they must be doing something that they're going to get hit with legal attacks. Otherwise, why would you sell all this up? It would be like you arming every citizen in your town with guns. Maybe that's a bad analogy. I shouldn't use that. But being prepared for a war that there's nobody around that you figure is going to go to war with you, but you're going to do something that you'd create other people to want to go to war with you.
It's preventative. So here's a short history of the IAS. Okay, Operation Snow White or Program Snow White.
Yeah.
Okay, that was led by the old Guardian's office.
Right.
And then in July 8, 1977, the FBI raided the Church of Scientology of California, the old church.
Yeah.
And 11 top members went to prison, including Mary Sue Hubbard, the wife of Mr. Hubbard. So during that time, they created the Safe Environment Fund. And you go back, you remember the Safe Environment Fund?
Yep, I'm very familiar with that. I remember the Church of Scientology in the Philadelphia area coming over to my house, and I had a fireplace inside the house and one outside, and they were bringing documents over, and they were burning stuff for about 8 hours straight at my house.
Hey, Ron.
Was I part of it? Yeah.
You mind if we borrow your fireplace?
No kidding. They brought boxes over in vans, and they're throwing it in the goddamn fireplace, and even outside there was an outside grill, and they're throwing burning things. There's normally they dekludge, they get rid of things. Come on.
They're destroying evidence at your house.
I know.
Well,
and I was brainwashed. Come on.
You know what it'd be like? Hey, we got to destroy evidence. Where's a safe place nearby? Well, David Miscavige's dad, his old man, he's over his house. He's safe, right? Oh, let's go. And Marty Rathbun told a story about how they burned a whole bunch of stuff up in Canada.
Oh, boy.
In his third book, Memoirs of a Scientology Warrior. So destroying evidence aside and obstruction of justice aside, the Safe Environment Fund was created as a legal defense fund for the Snow White defendants, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't even that good, because if you remember Bill Franks, the late Bill Franks, he was executive.
Oh yeah, I never actually met him, but I remember him.
Oh, he was a dear friend of Karen and I miss him.
Yeah.
So Bill Franks was executive director international. And these Mary Sue, her lawyers thought she could beat the charges at a criminal trial.
Mm-hmm.
And L. Ron Hubbard ordered Bill Franks to cut off Mary Sue's funding for her legal defense. Like, she's not going to go to trial. She's going to go serve her time, right?
Wow.
That would have dragged Ron into the mess. He didn't have to testify against his wife, but it would have created a problem. But the point is, there was a legal defense fund, and it was at the discretion of L. Ron Hubbard, and he said his wife could not avail herself of the funds. So anyway, the Snow White people signed stipulation of evidence. They went to prison for short periods of time. The money was left over from Safe Environment Fund, and a lawyer told David Miscavige and Mike Linder and the powers that be that, hey, the great thing about the Safe Environment Fund is we don't have to give the money back. And it was like, are you serious? Yeah, we don't have to. So they said, one, we need something like this, where we can take in money and not have to give it back, because the church has always been problemized, that's a Scientology term, by refunds and repayments. So what they did is they created the International Association of Scientologists for two reasons. They could take money in, and it was for the protection, defense, dissemination of the Scientology religion, right?
Yeah.
And that's important. Those are vague purposes that can mean anything.
Yeah.
In religion, when you raise money for a church building, it has to be spent on the church building. It can't be spent on anything else. So the IES had broad purposes where they could take in money for free, and they could spend it on private investigators at $10,000 a week to follow you. They could spend it on lawyers to defend against all this horrendous human rights abuses, allegations of rape, pedophilia, all their criminality, right?
Right.
So the Wollersheim case, when Larry Wollersheim sued, the case was so dangerous because they realized they were a sitting duck as the old corporate structure, Church of Scientology.
Right.
If he had gotten a $50 million reward, he could have taken down all their money. He could have even seized their technology, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they split into a million pieces. But the IAS exists because all they have to do is take in money, and they give you these what I've long called glorified bowling trophies.
Right.
And Ron, it's difficult to deliver an hour of auditing because you've got a lot of people involved, right?
That's right.
But it's easy to take in money and give someone a trophy.
Or a piece of paper that says, here, you're a good guy.
Well, here, look at this picture. Here, this is an older magazine, but these are $2.5 million trophies. So if someone gave me a $2.5 million trophy, it'd be like, oh, hell yeah, here's a big trophy. And I'll even put your picture in my magazine. And the more you give, the bigger your trophy will be. Diamond Meritorious. So the IES over time started creating these statuses and giving trophies, but they were taking in money and not having to give anything in return. And it's interesting that Mr. Hubbard said that criminal ripoff exchange is that of the tax man, you know, who wants something for nothing. And excuse me, but I mean, you can donate to your church. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But like you get trophies. But the main reason they created the IS is to keep Scientologists from having any voice in the Church of Scientology International. And they created it as a way to take in free money that could be used for any purpose, including private investigators, lawyers, ideal orgs, or whatever they want. So it's a slush fund. It really is. And one suspicion that I can't prove, because it's a legally separate corporation, follow me here, right?
Yeah.
And Scientology has a doctrine of exchange, where if I do something for you, you must give me something in return, or vice versa, right?
Yep.
So if you come over and paint my house, I'm going to pay you to do that, right?
Right.
Or if I come over to fix your garbage disposal, you're going to pay me. So the IS has big events where money is raised, funds are raised, and fundraisers in Scientology get commissions. So who is the largest single IAS fundraiser? It's David Miscavige, chairman of the board. Now, my suspicion is that he gets 10% commission for raising IAS monies as a fundraiser. That's my personal suspicion. But because all these things are religious corporations that don't have to disclose anything about anything, I can't prove that. That's just,
of course not,
a suspicion. Now, if he is in fact getting a 10% fundraising fee, then David Miscavige is worth well north of $100 million.
Right.
Personally. But, you know, we don't know that. That's just one of my surmises. So the whole point is, once you join, you have an operating arm of the IS, right? Run by Sea Org first. And who's in charge of the Sea Org?
David.
Captain David Miscavige, the highest ranking member. And we've covered on your other show how the Sea Org doesn't legally exist. It's a legal fiction. It doesn't have an address. It doesn't have members. All it is a pledge. So that's a thing for another show. The Sea Org is actually a pledge you sign, but it doesn't have any legal existence. And David Miscavige's attorney argued that in Rathbun versus Miscavige. So here in the final analysis is how it works. You're an IAS member here, right?
Yes.
And the Church of Scientology is in the middle, right? And then Sea Org is over here.
Right.
Now, they don't exist. You belong to an unincorporated membership association. So you go into a Church of Scientology where you, as a Scientologist, an IAS member, you meet a Sea Org member who delivers auditing to you, right?
Right.
And the Church of Scientology International is in the middle, taking all the money. So the org takes the money, Church of Scientology International takes the money, RTC takes the money. And on top of that, you had to pay for your lifetime membership to belong to the IAS, and you're expected to increase your IAS patron statuses. So the minimum buy-in is, I forget what lifetime membership is now, $10,000. But really, they expect you to go to 40,000, 50,000 and keep up in your IAS patron status. In fact, for the OT levels, to be eligible for the OT levels, they look at how much have you contributed to the IAS. So the IAS is this fundraising out of control nightmare. And it operated, initially when it operated, it was a non-situs trust, which was based on the free winds. Non-situs means it just didn't have any location. It was based on the free winds. It was incorporated in Curacao, which is part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. It's not part of the Netherlands, but it's the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So Curaçao's got this murky autonomy because it's part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So the IS office was there, but it was really sited on the free winds. And we'll get into another time. The free winds was largely purchased to house the IAS outside of the United States jurisdiction.
That was not the story that was given when the free winds was purchased. The story that was given was that you had to get away from land masses in order to do these upper levels, because that would kind of affect what kind of case gains you were going to get. It was right. I may not be stating it exactly, but that was some and substance of it.
You are correct. They said to get OT8, the top of the Scientology bridge.
Right.
Even though the bridge actually goes to OT15. OT8.
In theory.
Well, I mean, it's Mr. Hubbard published his bridge.
Yeah, of course.
We don't OT15. I didn't do it. He did. So, yeah, they said that you had to be and this is an old thing in spirituality. Why they have monasteries and retreats is you need to get away from the energy of the city and the masses and so that's ostensibly a very good reason, is they needed the ship to deliver OT8, right?
Yeah,
that's good air cover.
Yeah,
but, I mean, you could deliver OT8 at Flag, or if you needed somewhere remote, you could go down to Tierra del Fuego. But my point is, they have a ship to continue the nautical tradition of L. Ron Hubbard. Right. But really, they located the IAS on it because it was outside of U.S. jurisdiction, and they had taken a boatload of money. And so when you went onto the ship to do OT8, you went with IAS Regis. And you're on a ship. So when they say that OT8 has to be delivered off the crossroads of civilization, that whole thing, L. Ron Hubbard causatively dropped his body. He had this healthy body, attorney Earl Cooley said, right?
Right.
He laid down and floated out of it to do his upper level researches. Well, we know that's not true.
Of course not.
He died. He was an old, sick man.
Yeah.
Crime in getting old and sick, passing on, right?
Yeah.
They had to make Hubbard God, so they created the story that he causatively dropped his body. Well, the ship being for OT8, yes, that's true, but they didn't say, oh, and we're also going to create this fundraising, runaway, out of control, greedy fundraising machine and park it outside of U.S. jurisdiction so the United States government doesn't know where our money is, can't seize it if we're sued. And the most they can do is link us to the Kingdom of the Netherlands on Curacao, which it's impossible to do anything there unless you're Dutch. Curacao, by the way, Ron, they talk about how SafePoint, how well they get on in Curacao, right?
Yeah. Wait, are you asking me, or are you stating?
No, I'm rhetorically saying that Scientology has always talked about how the good relations it's had with Curacao, right?
Yeah.
And Curacao has one of the largest open-air brothels in the world. And Scientology talks about human rights, and the IAS talks about human rights.
Yeah.
A lot of Venezuelan women are human trafficked into the brothels on Curacao. These poor Venezuelan young ladies are human trafficked from Venezuela into Curacao for prostitution. And Scientology has done fuck all nothing about that human rights situation.
Right.
Instead, it keeps its mouth shut about what goes on in Curacao. So Curacao has a filthy, old oil refining factory that's polluting. It's a mess. It was owned by a Venezuelan company, and Venezuela's melted down. So it's just, I just wanted to point that out as part of the IS hypocrisy, is they talk about Curacao, and the Free Winds talks about Curacao, and they're not doing anything about the human rights abuses or the sex trafficking that goes on the island.
Right.
So my point, Ron, is everything is not as it seems. So you can see that's how you join the Church of Scientology, is by joining its membership organization, where you have no vote, no voice, no say-so in how the monies are spent. You don't have any choice. That's why the Church of Scientology International doesn't want members. It wants you over here in some unincorporated association where you're going to do as you're told, and you have to stay in good standing with the church to be declared. So the whole, and you sign the contracts, as you mentioned earlier. So the whole arrangement of Scientology is to strip you of all your power, strip you of your legal rights, civil rights, while telling you it's all about freedom, when it's actually about slavery. So that's it, and that's what I have to say, Ron.
Wow. I'll tell you, it really is done with smoke and mirrors, isn't it?
It is smoke and mirrors, and that's why you ask simple questions like, what is the Church of Scientology? How do you join the church? Because I was just, and I did this on my blog because I wanted to correct the misapprehension. People thought you could take $100,000 and walk into Celebrity Center and say, here, I want some auditing. They go, oh no. And I'll add one more thing. After you sign your after you join the IS,
Right,
sign your 4 contracts, one more thing. The A to J SEC check, which we'll cover on our next thing. They want to make sure you're not a criminal. They want to make sure you're not gay. They want to know everything about you, right?
yeah,
If you're gay, then they're going to handle that, right? And if they don't want you to be a communist. I mean, so you got to do the SEC check, and then only when they feel that you're safe, that you haven't been sent in by the media or the police or the IRS or a federal agency. You're not here to attack Scientology, spy on it, right? Only after you go through all these hurdles, and there's a mechanism to even be a Scientologist. If you're critical or if they suspect you, you're not going to get in.
No.
So only after you've jumped through all these hurdles do you get on the cans and get some auditing. So that's a paranoid organization that's all about cosmic psychopolitics.
Well, you're putting it very lightly when you say paranoid. I mean, it's like being paranoid on steroids, though. You know what I mean?
All the corporate and all the contracts, that is paranoia in a nutshell. And that's it, Ron. That's all I got.
Boy, I'll tell you, Jeffrey, this is very revealing. It really is like truth revealed.
Yeah, well, let's do part 2.
I'd love to do it. I would love to do it, and I'm the guy to come on to do it because when I was born, I'll tell you, I was born into the Catholic Church, and maybe this was a send off to be a bit of a recalcitrant. Could I call myself a recalcitrant? I'll go up against the status quo to expose things. When I was born, I got baptized. All right, in a Catholic church. And my uncle Babby was the one that baptized me. And Babby was a gambler. You know, he's a kind of wild guy. Now, when you're carrying a baby down to be baptized, you have to say the Apostles' Creed. You know, I believe in the Church of Scientology. I believe in the Catholic Church. I believe blah, 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 all these things. He didn't know that. So as he's carrying me down the aisle to get baptized, he was saying, 7 come 11, 7 come 11, 7 come 11. That's a true story.
Yeah.
So maybe that he gave me the idea. Listen, kid, don't let people walk on you. And if something happens in your environment, maybe where people are getting walked on, do something to help them. And
yeah,
it could have been a little bit of a sign there. Maybe not. I just thought I'd bring it up because it reminded me of my uncle doing this, me doing these shows and having guys like you on who were. This is information that where the hell would somebody go to get this if you didn't come on this show?
ScientologyMoneyProject.com. And so, Ron, I got to wrap it up here. And I want to do part 2, and we'll get into some more of their stuff about what I'm working on next. There's just a teaser. There's a little lawsuit in Florida concerning Scientology. It could turn into something very big.
You are on. I mean, you don't have to ask me twice on something like that. I would love to do it, Jeffrey, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this today.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm Ron Miscavige. This is Life After Scientology. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. You're going to find a lot of programs like this that are very educational and very enlightening to your life. And the more enlightened you are, the better off you can live a better life, I think. I do other things, and you can see if you go to my website, therealronmiscavige.com. So I'm going to stop talking and just say thank you very much, Jeffrey. I'm so glad you come on today. This was very revealing, and I look forward to our next show. Okay, buddy?
Likewise, Ron. Thank you. Always good to see you.
And I'm Ron Miscavige, and this has been Life After Scientology. See you on the next episode. Bye-bye for now.